I'd like to tell you a story about a little girl who spent all of her educational career feeling different and like a failure in comparison to her peers. Growing up, teachers would often refer to her as a social butterfly, pleasant to have in class, but just unable to get her head out of the clouds or focus on the task at hand. Frequently, she would be told how smart she was, but that she just needed to try harder if she wanted to achieve at the same rate as her peers. By middle school, this young girl would succumb to the idea that she would never be as smart as her peers, no matter how hard she tried. With this recognition and the continuation of messages such as, "You're just lazy, you're not trying hard enough," she would go through high school trying to hide her inadequacies from her peers, and then spend a decade after college grappling with her lack of self-confidence and worth, both in her academic and career space. But what this young girl didn't know was that she was neurodiverse, or more specifically, had ADHD. In fact, this young girl would go almost her entire educational career unaware that it wasn't that she had the inability to learn. It was that she wasn't being provided an opportunity to learn in a way that was ideal for how her brain processed information. Because when it comes to ADHD, females are often under-recognized and diagnosed in comparison to their male peers. A recent study from the CDC in 2016 found that 12.9% of boys are more likely to be identified as having ADHD in comparison to the 5.6% of females who are diagnosed. The research also goes on to suggest that there are more females with ADHD than is traditionally reported. Because what you might not know is that for a long time, especially when this young girl was in school, ADHD was just something that hyperactive little boys with perceived poor parenting had, while little girls were daydreamers who just needed to try harder and focus a little bit more. A recent study has found that individuals with ADHD receive approximately 20,000 negative or corrective messages by the time they are 10 years old, resulting in children and adolescents who begin to view themselves as broken or flawed. Needless to say, the number of so many negative messages makes these children begin to feel like they are somehow inadequate or broken in comparison to who their peers are. Now let's talk about our education setting and the impact that that has on students. Currently, if you were to walk into any elementary or secondary setting, there's a high likelihood that you would be met with desks and neat little rows with students expected to sit quietly, raise their hand, and learn in a predetermined fashion. And any student who has to learn in a way other than that predetermined way, well, they're gonna need special accommodations. A recent study from the Learning Disabilities Association of America, published in 2017, found that 1 in 5 students is impacted by a learning disability and/or attention challenges, equating to roughly 11.2 million students. 11.2 million students who every day show up to school and feel like something is wrong with them as a learner. But what if I told you that some of those students are some of the smartest individuals you might ever meet? Would you wonder why they need accommodations? Would you be confused as to why they struggle in school if they're so smart? Or would you think maybe they're just being lazy and they need to try harder? Did you know that some of the best evidence-backed, research-based strategies for students are not currently being implemented in our education system at scale? That's right. We have evidence backed by hard science that things like teaching learning strategies, being flexible in the amount of time it takes students to learn, modifying the curriculum to include student interest, providing options like flexible seating, and addressing student needs through things like providing choices and how they demonstrate their mastery of curriculum can lead to significant impacts in how students perceive and interact with their learning. When you think about it, our education system has long been a one-size-fits-all approach to learning. And some of us wear that size just fine, while the rest of us have ways of thinking and learning that just don't fit into that education box that we've been given. And then as a result, we're left with these false feelings that lead us to feel like that we're somehow less than the rest of our peers. When in reality, many individuals who are neurodiverse have the level of creativity and out-of-the-box thinking that have the potential to lead to new and exciting discoveries. But it's really hard to be at the forefront of anything when you're busy trying to mask who you really are. Now, if you haven't guessed by now, the little girl in our story, well, she's me. And the hurt and frustration that I felt throughout my academic career is ultimately what led me to become a teacher. I felt passionately that I would do everything in my power to ensure that other students who were neurodiverse like me wouldn't have to wait for some aha moment in their 30s to know what they were capable of, but that they would know from the moment they set foot into that post-secondary world that they were capable of achieving whatever their hearts desired. And that outside-of-the-box thinking was actually a very powerful gift. So let's get back to the basics and talk about some of the things that you can do as future educators to ensure that all students that you work with know how incredibly valuable they are. First, be vulnerable. I know I'm not the first teacher who didn't like school or struggled academically, but I don't ever remember hearing any of my teachers talk about that. By being honest with your students about struggles that you had academically, it shows them that there's nothing to be ashamed of and needing a little bit of help. Prioritize student relationships above all else. Students won't remember the details of your class, but they will remember how you made them feel. And when they're not available for learning for whatever reason, you will be grateful that you have that relationship to appeal to. Be patient. Every student is dealing with something, and some students are dealing with more significant burdens than others. Every behavior has a root cause, and if you can be patient and stand behind your student, they will never forget that. Think outside the box. When I wanted to create a program for students with mental health needs, higher-ups in my district thought I was crazy, and the need for such a program wasn't necessary. But my passion and perseverance for what I knew to be in the best interest of students has allowed for a program that 8 years later is still serving students who were impacted by school avoidance and mental health needs. Finally, cherish the unassuming gem. You will inevitably come across a student in your career whose reputation has already been solidified as a bad egg. And it'll be up to you to resist the temptation of that preconceived notion. And by doing so, you will become a beacon for that student that they have yet to find, providing them the chance to show everyone what they are truly capable of achieving. Every day, I work hard to show the world that the education should never be a one-size-fits-all approach to learning, and that celebrating students for who they are as individual learners is the key to a bright and positive future. So, as you leave here today, my challenge to you is this: take the time to reflect on your educational career. Think about what you loved, what you wish had been different, how your teachers made you feel, and what you felt was missing. Then recognize that you are the next generation of educators, the generation that has the power to change a system in a ways that makes all students, no matter what challenges they face, feel like they are ready to take on the world. Thank you.